always looking for that closure to find answers.
I have been stuck in survival mode for so long.
No more surviving, no more coping. Why did you do this to me? It's Rania here, your host on the Healing Train, a podcast designed to help you lighten your load, release whatever is weighing you down, and reconnect with yourself. Whether it's a toxic relationship, childhood wounds that never healed, struggling with self-forgiveness, or on a healing journey, it's time we have these uncomfortable conversations. Let's dive deep with experts and professionals in psychology, health and wellness, and alternative healing, and also ordinary people that have been there. It may just be the fresh perspective you need to support your journey. You could even be a guest on this show. This is a space for sharing stories, a safe stop where you can pause, recharge, and know you're not alone. So take a deep breath, settle in, and join me on today's ride as we explore the path to healing together. Hop on board the healing train. On the show with us today, we have Yara N. Ortiz. Yara is the owner and CEO of Bookkeeping Consulting Services. She is a 2 times international best-selling author, award-winning author and speaker, and a successful financial consultant who has helped numerous nonprofits build a strong foundation and structure their financial management systems. With over 14 years of experience in nonprofit financial management, she deeply understands their unique challenges. Yara's perspective is shaped by her lived experiences and upbringing in Puerto Rico and the Bronx, New York. Before establishing her company, she served as the director of finance and HR at a charter school in her community. As a single mom of a teenage boy and a survivor of an abusive relationship with a narcissist, Yara knows firsthand the resilience it takes to rebuild one's life. Her journey fuels her passion for empowering nonprofit leaders with essential financial knowledge and helping them develop robust systems for long-term success. While Yara specializes in nonprofits, she also serves small businesses and provides personal budgeting planning for individuals. And when she's not hard at work for her clients, Yara treasures spending time with her son, exploring the wonders of nature, or enjoying some Zumba sessions. Yara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rania, for having me. It's a pleasure, an honor.
Yara, I normally begin my episodes with a quotation. Please let me share a quote that I found on Instagram, actually, one of my people I follow, My Self-Love Supply. And it says, "It's okay if you thought you were over it, but it hits you all over again. It's okay to fall apart even after you thought you had it under control. You are not weak. Healing is messy. There is no timeline for healing." How do you feel about that?
That is very profound. It's so true because healing, the healing process is so different for each individual person. There's no timeline, there's no script, there's no checklist that you need to follow. It's just so individual and so personal.
Absolutely, you're right. And you and I have this in common, Yara. We connected. I mean, other than the fact that we have so many things in common, but one of the things we connected on the most is our experience with narcissistic relationships. How we've both found a way to heal from the effects of the abuse and rebuild our lives, and become the resilient women that we are today, sitting here having this conversation, hopefully making a difference in the world. But having said that, Yara, every dynamic has its own unique events. And today, I would like for us to address your unique situation that you experienced and struggled with. Now, let me give a bit of a background about healing from narcissistic abuse in general. That's a battle of its own. Healing from the narcissist who flipped your life upside down and is no longer here in the physical world for you to confront them and ask them, why? Why did you do this to me? Why did you treat me like that? Essentially, I think we're looking for closure, Yara. We are always looking for that closure to find answers. We need those answers, we feel, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes the answers are what we give ourselves. It's not so much something that the person who hurt us will give us, right? There's no guarantee that our questions would have even been answered even if they were around. But in a
Mhm.
situation where they're not here for you to ask them, mentally, we're like, ah, you feel so frustrated that you're not going to get your answers because they're not here. So, Yara,
Mhm.
I'm going to leave the floor to you for you to talk to us about your experience, your struggles with the narcissistic relationship, especially towards the end. We all know how it goes toward when
Yeah.
it's happening, but your feelings towards the end when it was ending and how you got through it.
So healing, yes, is such a tricky process. You find so many things that you didn't even know existed. And just to have a little bit of background context. So I remember feeling completely drained and I felt numb way so many times. I felt like I was walking around in a fog and like I feeling and not feeling anything, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Questioning my own reality and replaying in my head over and over so many times, so many scenarios, you know, of things that did happen and why didn't I do this or why didn't I respond this way, and instead I just stood there all quiet, didn't say anything to defend myself and just let things happen, and I struggled even with myself and felt angry with myself for having allowed so many things I shouldn't, right? But that's the thing when you are living the moment, when
Mm-hmm.
you are there, it's like you don't realize how deep the situation really is or how deep the fear is and how far things have gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like it's there, but you don't, and you have a lot of fear, but at the same time you don't realize how far it has really gone,
Yeah.
right? And when I was in those moments, I felt so invisible, like unheard and devalued and underestimated, undermined. He was always telling me, you're so naive. Um, you can live without me because like I won't be able to hold myself on my own. My self-esteem was way below the floor, like I always describe it. And I lost myself completely, because I pretty much did. And he had worked me out so and conditioned me in such a way that I did pretty much lose myself, and not only mentally or emotionally or psychologically, but also physically because I gained so much weight that it's not even funny. I was going through such depression that I was eating a pint of ice cream
Mm-hmm.
almost every day, right? And he had isolated me and slowly cut me off from everyone who truly cared about me, and the isolation was really suffocating because even when I started realizing that things wasn't normal, that I was living in survival mode, not only for me, but for my son, I still doubted myself. I still didn't kind of like I didn't react, right? And then I was actually asking myself, am I overreacting? And was I really the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Like he kept telling me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing because that right there, um, that I was living in that moment is one of the most common tactics that they use at this the gaslighting, right? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what gaslighting does to you. It creates confusion and self-doubt
Yeah.
and loss of trust in your own judgment, right? Intuition. And I was living that real life in those moments when I was going through those questions in my head and doubting myself. And it's crazy how deep those emotional wounds can run and how deep they can go, right? There is was constant a war inside my head, like one side screaming, "Oh, you deserve better, get out," right? Then the other side is like, "But what if you can make it on your own?
Mm.
And what if he's right about you?" And
Mm.
that's what narcissistic abuse really does to you. You know, it strips you from your confidence and your identity and your ability to trust yourself. And towards the end of the relationship, I was in the relationship for 15 years, almost 15 years. And I was exhausted towards the end, you know, constantly trying to keep the peace,
Yeah.
you know, protect not only me, but my son,
Yeah.
trying to live my life, if you could call that living. You know, like go to work, do my job, and just do enough just to get me by my day.
Mm.
I was in constant, overwhelming fear of what will happen if I finally walked away, if because I knew he was not just gonna let me go. I knew that, you know, he even threatened me a few times, not only once, a few times, to, and his words, "I will murder you." But those were his words. If I would play him or thought of even leaving him, right? So imagine that. You know, I knew that by leaving, I would have to be looking over my shoulders and behind my back, literally, which I did after I left.
Mm.
Um, as I was walking, you know, by my day and doing whatever it was on the street, you know, I remember that when I used to, you know, I was on my job and before coming outside, I would actually look outside from
Yeah.
the inside before stepping out just to see if I would see him or would see something off, right?
You're living in
Um,
fear. You're living in fear.
yeah, and that's
Mm.
not a way to live, right? And
Mm.
it was like even when I was no longer with him, I was still living in a cage, right? I was still he still had me, you know, and I had to calculate my every move. Still, you know, I will even change my route going back home because he didn't know where we lived. So I would always change and always looking behind the mirror to see if I would have see someone follow me or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I laugh now, but it's just not a way to live, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But you
And exactly
know,
like you said, like we ask ourselves, how did I let it get to this point? How did I
yeah,
not see the signs long ago?
yeah,
Right? You ask, you second guess yourself, your judgment, your experience. You wonder, am I really? And we use the word stupid. We call ourselves stupid, and I'm like, am I stupid? Of course, that's not what you should be calling yourself at all.
hmm, yeah, and I struggled a lot with that, you know, with myself, right? When after he passed, you know, you will think like, okay, you will think that the weight will just lift, but the struggle is a different kind of struggle, right? Because he
Yeah.
passed. You
Yeah.
know, you would think that once he was gone, the weight will just lift, that I'm finally free, but it wasn't that simple, you know. At first, there was this weird mix of emotion, right? I felt relieved, but then I
Mm.
felt anger and I felt guilt. I felt sadness, and then back to relief, and it was like a roller coaster of emotions, right? I had spent so many years living in survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
tiptoeing around his moods and trying to keep everything from blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
And now he wasn't here, and there was no one controlling me anymore.
Mm.
But I still felt like I was trapped in that mental jail prison that he built. I was still going through that, and for a long time I struggled with guilt. When he passed, you know, it was sudden. He was homeless at that time. He was living out of his van, and even though I went through what I went through with him, my heart didn't allow me to just leave him there and not help somehow, knowing that I could, right? And for some people, it may sound crazy, like I would just leave him, but like my heart wouldn't let me. And also, I did it for my son,
Mm.
right? Because I didn't want to set a wrong example either
Yeah. Yeah.
for my son. And you know, we will take him. I will take him food and things that he will need and things like that. And his death was sudden. We were planning on going to see him that Monday morning when on the Sunday night I received the call that he was dead. It was just sudden, right? It wasn't that he was sick in the hospital or anything like that. It was just
Yeah.
all of a sudden. Um, And then it hurt me because, again, even though I went through all I went through with him, I didn't desire him to die. And then the way he died all alone, just in his van, they found him in his van. So it was a real sad moment and situation, right?
Bad ending. Yeah, yeah,
On top of what I was already going through, right? And that was another added emotional hit for me, not to mention breaking the news to my son. That was one of the hardest things I had to ever, that I had to do. It was like the words, the day I told him, the words wouldn't even come out of my mouth, like literally,
yeah. Of course.
and then when time passed by, I struggled with guilt. Like
Yeah.
I said, am I supposed to cry? Am I supposed to feel bad? Am I supposed to feel relief? Like I kept thinking, like, what the heck am I supposed to be feeling right now? It was confusing.
You're
It,
absolutely right. And I will, I'm gonna say something here that may sound very bad, but like there might be women in your shoes who are dealing with the narcissistic abuse as we're speaking and listening to this or watching us.
mhm, yes.
And probably in their mind, they're thinking, oh, I wish mine would just disappear that way and I don't have to deal with him again. I mean, but this is what we get pushed to that point. We may be all very good people and we don't wish harm on anyone. But
Mhm,
the things that we go through and we become desperate to the
yes.
point that sometimes we feel that the only way we're going to feel relief is if they are no longer here in the physical world to deal with them or to be under their control or to be in that survival mode. It is a
Mhm,
natural feeling to sometimes even wish ill to the person that's abusing you. And I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I am not encouraging it. But what I'm saying is that if you are feeling that way, it's okay. Don't feel guilty that you're feeling this way. That's not who you are, anyways.
mhm,
That's not at the core of who you are. It's just that your trauma and your coping and your emotions are all over the place that
yes.
you've reached to the point to say, oh, I wish they're not here anymore in that way, right? In the physical world. But I'm glad that that you and I are having this conversation because I want people who are victims of narcissistic abuse to understand that the trauma that we have to heal from narcissistic abuse is mainly the one that's within us because you're
Mhm,
describing now the emotions that you've been through even after he's no longer there. So if you
mhm,
think that the moment they're gone, everything is hunky dory, think again. It isn't that
mhm,
simple. You still gotta peel those layers to heal yourself because there's so much damage that was done that now we need to address and do the inner work to get ourselves back to some sort of normality, whatever that normal is, for our emotions to be stable, for us to find purpose in life again, for us to look towards the future, to have new dreams, maybe to even get to a point of dating again when we're ready. Of course, let's not jump into another relationship right away and expect that
mhm,
will heal us. Another person isn't going to heal the damage that someone else did. It's the work that you got to do on your own to heal from that. And I'd like to ask you, how did you manage to get back on your feet? What worked for you? And of course, for every person it will be something different, but since you're sharing your story, please,
mhm.
what worked for you?
Yeah, honestly, like it wasn't a one big aha moment, like, oh, I'm healed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a whole bunch
Doesn't work that way. Yeah.
no, not at all. It was a whole bunch of small steps taken every single day, one day at a time, right? At first, I didn't even know what getting back on my feet would look like
Yeah.
because I have been stuck in survival mode for so long. But what worked for me was a mix of mindset shifts and just refusing to let that chapter define the rest of my life.
Mm.
The first thing I had to do was face myself. because I had to admit that I was broken, that I was angry with myself, that I had lost myself, that I wanted to, that if I wanted to rebuild, I had to start from the inside out.
Mm. Mm.
And it took a lot of therapy. It took journaling. It took lots of prayer and conversation with God.
Mhm.
Um, but one of the biggest things was getting out there. I stopped isolating myself. I reconnected with some people. I met some other good peoples that just came, that got put in my life. And, I attended support groups for some time and surrounded myself with people who lifted me up and people who share my faith and my values. And it wasn't easy. There were days that I wanted to just crawl back into my shell and just stay home. But I just kept pushing myself. But all of this was what helped me, you know, uh, find myself and get stronger little by little, just getting out of my shell, pushing myself sometimes even when I didn't want to, and just doing that deep work and having, getting involved with church and combination of all of that is what really worked for me. And still,
It's a yeah, a work in
I still
progress.
do it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I still do it.
Mhm. And would you say being a mom, a single mom now at this point, was a motivation factor in your healing so you could be the mom you want to be for your son, to give him that good parenting, that good example, to help him not live a tough life just because it started off
Hmm.
not the greatest? Would
Right.
you say that that was a big motivator factor for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember I was sitting in my living room and I was so feeling so defeated and like, oh my God, like I was just dragging myself. And he's like playing in front of me in the living room and he saw me, my
Mhm.
son, and by then he was like 10, 11 years old. And he saw me.
So he
He's
made eye
like,
contact with you.
no, yes, but like when I say he saw me, it's like he saw through me.
Ah, saw through you. Gotcha.
He saw through me, right? And he wasn't like 10, 11 years old. And, and he goes, Mommy, don't be sad. Let's just go out and do something. And he doesn't know that those words in his innocence was like what clicks in my head. It was like made me click.
Like a defining moment almost.
Yes, yes. He doesn't know that. I just looked at him. I was like, okay, papi, let's go. And just got dressed and just went out. And that moment, I really went into deep work, like
Mm.
in HD, right? And
I was like, okay, let's do this.
let's do this, right? Let's just start peeling off layer after layer, trying to, then finding all my emotions and my hurts and my struggles and all of that. And then it's like, sometimes you find things that you didn't even know that were there. Like, oh, shoot, wait, I'm suffering from that too. What was that?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see you there.
It's amazing
uh,
what you uncover.
yes, it's crazy because, then I went back to the gym. I started building my business, spending more time with him,
Hmm.
being myself, the same indoors and outdoors without hiding or faking, laughing without fear or not forcing to smile or laugh like, oh, let me pretend because, you know, there was one thing outside, one other thing inside, right? And then
Yeah.
interacting with people really without the fear of having to be questioned later on as to why were you talking to this person or the other person? What did you talk about? Tell me word by word. Things like that, went back to dreaming and setting goals and being able to just be me and breathe.
Yeah.
It was like that defining moments. I was like, okay, there's no stopping me. I'm not saying that it was easy after that. It just
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go.
Hmm.
But it was that
It was the stepping
defining moment.
stone. Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is probably the moment where you decided to put an end to survival mode. No more survival. Let's live. Let's live now, real life. No
Yes.
more surviving, no more coping. Let's let's start a new chapter. A brief stop at a station. If you have a story to share and feel called to tell it, if you want to share your expertise on this show, please send an email to guest@healingtrain.ca. To join me on a journey of healing and recovery, connect with me. My calendar link is in the description. This show is proudly sponsored by Say It Out Loud GG, led by the inspiring Judith Diaz, an avid change maker and passionate advocate for speaking up and raising awareness. The Healing Train podcast is honored to have her support. Now let's get back to the show. Pretty much what you did. You said, let's start a new chapter. And you started the chapter. And there will be more chapters to close and to open and continue, because that is life.
Yeah.
Life
Absolutely.
is a bunch of chapters, but that chapter in your life was a big one. And it guided you to a lot of the work that you now do,
Yeah.
right? Please talk to us about the work that you do as a result of that experience with the financial management, the nonprofit. There's a story there as well. Guide us through
Yeah,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. So my business is BCS, which is bookkeeping consulting services, and I've been in the business and financial management world for many years. And with BCS, I specialize in bookkeeping and financial management services for nonprofit organizations. And when I was little, I saw a lot of my family struggle financially and in survival mode and looking for
Yeah.
help. A lot of times this nonprofit organizations is the lifeline in their communities, right? And I know I saw a lot of them not being able to survive because of financial struggles.
Mm.
When I opened my business, I decided to open my business. I chose nonprofits as my niche. Not that I can sell small businesses, absolutely, but nonprofits as my niche because it's for me, in my mind, is the way I can help behind the curtains for them to stay afloat so
Yeah.
that they uh, continue to do the work that they're doing in the community and their mission and vision and stuff and things like that. Because the finances is very important for them to stay afloat and so that they can continue to receive the funding that they need to
Mm.
survive, right? And aside from that, I am also a financial coach and I provide personal financial coaching where I help individuals and mainly women
Mhm.
um, make the most of their income and gain money management skills. And because what led me to that,
Mhm.
actually, that came a little after. And because most people don't even realize how deep it runs, how a toxic relationship can mess up your money just as much as it can mess up your mind, right? And it's just not just about the emotional damage; it's also the financial hit that you get from that.
Yeah.
And maybe the abuse or control of the money made you feel like, you know, guilty for spending on yourself or left you picking up the pieces because that's what they do as well, right? They ramp up the credit card and leave you with it
Yep. Yep.
because it's what they
Financial debt.
target too, the
Exactly. And that's
finances.
called financial abuse. That is financial.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's exactly it. And that's exactly why I do what I do. I decided to also do financial coaching to help women
Hmm.
take back control of their money because I know how a toxic relationship can leave you feeling stuck, not just emotionally, but also financially. And I know that a lot of the women that are perhaps out there right now stuck in a abusive relationship because they don't have the resources, the finances to come out, and they wouldn't even know how to even begin
Yeah.
to start building to get out.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons why I decided to also do financial coaching and getting Dave Ramsey certified and provide those services as well because this is to stop.
Well,
You
it's
know,
part of your mission to empower women.
yes,
Financial empowerment is one huge aspect. Financial education by itself, just educating people especially women,
Yes.
on how to be independent, financially independent, so they can make the tough decisions when time comes to run away really
Yeah.
from their abusive situation and have something to fall back on. I mean, worst case scenario, they'll end up in shelters if it comes down to that, and there's like some serious physical abuse there, and their life is in danger or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, a woman has to do what she has to do if she doesn't have the resources. But why not get educated from now so you can have a proper exit
Yes.
plan it, work on it, so you can leave and have something to stand on your own 2 feet. It's not going to be easy, and we're not promising it's going to be a piece of cake. It's going to be a tough road. Be
Absolutely.
prepared for a tough road, but at least be
Yeah.
educated.
Yeah, exactly. At least start with that, educating yourself, right? And building little by little so that you have that foundation to be able to get out and have something you can stand on till you really start getting on your feet and building.
Yeah, no, these are great points. I want to go back to your ex narcissist who's no longer here.
Hmm.
And I have a question for you. And I know it may be tough to answer. Answer it whichever way you can. And if it gets emotional, I totally understand. But if he were to be standing in front of you right now, in one brief statement, what would you say to him?
Um, I would say you don't have power over me.
Oh, that is such a powerful statement you just made.
You don't have power over me. I know, I know he had a rough upbringing.
Hmm.
I know he had his own struggles. I can understand that.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I'm not making excuses for him.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. Because nothing justifies the way he treated me.
Yeah.
But I also know that hurt people.
Yes.
And some of the roots of his behavior came from his own wounds,
Yeah.
his own battles, and his own um, anger he never learned to process,
Hmm.
whether by choice or because he didn't have the chance, whatever the reason may be, he just didn't learn how to process. And that doesn't mean that I excuse it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, I accept it. Definitely not. It just means that I see the bigger picture. I see it now more clearly. And he was operating from a place of pain, repeating cycles that probably started long before I ever met him. And
Hmm.
that's not my burden to carry though. I had to break my cycle. I had to make sure I didn't let his pain define my future. But understanding the why he was the way he was doesn't change what I went through, but it does give me the clarity to move forward without bitterness,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's my journey, it's my healing process and my healing journey. And I refuse that, to let his struggles become mine.
Mm. Talking like an empowered woman who's been doing a lot of inner work and healing. You've come a long way, Yara, and I hope you recognize that. I hope you can give yourself a little pat on the back and say, I'm doing this. Don't underestimate what you've been through. You are not just here resilient the way you are with nothing. You've been through hell and back,
Oh
and
my
here
God.
you are. Here you are. I
Thank
want to
you.
touch on a very important subject when we're dealing with toxic people, especially in relationships: forgiveness. A lot of misconceptions and pressures about forgiveness, and a
Yes.
lot of different opinions. And of course, to each their own. One thing survivors would like to ask of those who are trying to help, but it actually make things worse. I want to be the spokesperson for a survivor of narcissistic abuse. If you may allow me, Yara, I have prepared few points that I feel that I want to leave our audience with in regards to forgiveness. And as a survivor of narcissistic abuse, I would want to say, please leave us to process our feelings in our own time. That's the first thing I'm going to say. And number two, you don't know what it was like, even if you think you know. And number three, don't compare your life to mine. They were different. You didn't live a day in my shoes, and you weren't behind those closed doors that I was behind. Number four, no one has the right to tell another person how to feel and what not to feel. Because let me tell you, with a survivor of a narcissistic abuse, you multiply that by 100. Number five, and that's the last point, if you don't have something supportive to say or you don't know what to say nothing. Just be there. All we need is to feel loved and at times someone to listen. That's all we need. And this is speaking from a point of a survivor of narcissistic abuse myself. And I say those things because I've experienced the opposite of everything I just listed. And now I want to bring it back to you, Yara, now that you heard me say what I say. What is your journey with forgiveness and all those external pressures that I just mentioned?
Yes, very similar to you. Like I can relate to each one of those points. Healing is not a race, and there's no deadline on how long it takes to process trauma. Some days we might feel strong, and other days we might feel we are drowning in the emotions. So yes, let us process our feelings on at our own time, right? And unless you have lived through our own individual experience, you won't fully know. You just won't know. So a lot of people looking from the outside like to assume and judge and have their own opinions and put their 2 cents, but they just don't know. So please don't assume that you get it just because you think you can relate. Just listen with our judgment. And what we need the most is to have, that's what we need the most because we already have someone judging us. We've been judged enough, so we don't need another person judging us,
Exactly.
period. What I went through, me personally, wasn't just a bad relationship or normal couple problems. It was survival. I was surviving for me and my son. And every single day was about making sure I didn't say the wrong thing that will set him off. And I didn't want to lose whatever little control I had over my own life. People don't compare, don't put your 2 senses, don't judge, don't assume. And people love to throw around phrases like you should be over it or
Mhm,
you need to let it go.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
listen, unless you've been through abuse, you don't understand how the damage can be.
Yep.
It's not just about what happened then, it's about the impact that it has now, that it may
Yep.
continue to have how long God knows,
Hmm.
you know? And, in my case, the trust issues, the triggers, the way we question I question my thoughts and my feelings because we were gaslit for so long. So it's a process,
Hmm.
it's a journey. And sometimes we don't need advice. Sometimes we don't need opinions. Sometimes we just don't need even words. We just need, like you said, we just need love to be loved, right? To feel loved. And we just need someone to sit with us, feeling the support, and just sit there with your non judgmental presence,
Hmm.
keyword,
Yes. That's the
right?
perfect term you just used.
Yeah. Let me repeat that. What did I
Yes.
say? The non judgmental presence giving us the support, right? Because all we need is that your presence, your kindness, your willingness to simply be there. That's what it will mean the most for us, And because at the end of the day, we're not asking for the world. We're just asking for understanding. We're just asking for patience. We're asking for a little grace as we figure out. ourselves, how to rebuild our lives. Simple.
Yeah.
Nothing much.
It's so simple, but yet so hard. I don't know why.
I know.
Part of the question I asked you was about forgiveness, the actual notion of forgiveness. We all hear this term and we repeat it, and it's true. It's just that there's depth to the statement when we say, forgive for yourself, not for the other person. It's not about the other person, it's about you releasing whatever it is that's holding you back so you don't have any resentment or anger or feelings of revenge, so you can be free. So we forgive so we can be free. Having
Mhm.
said that, as much as I am 100% a supporter of that statement, and it is true,
Yeah.
but in my perception, I can tell you, if I cannot bring myself to say the words, I forgive you, so and so, that's okay. And it doesn't mean that I am not able to say those words, that I am holding on to resentment or anger or that it's poisoning me. No, perhaps I can say, I release you. I release whatever it is that once held me back, that once caused me pain. I
Mhm.
release you from my life. I release you from my energy. I release you. But I don't have to say I forgive you. I don't have to. And people on the outside need to understand that that is okay. And again, not bring their judgmental presence to say, oh, well, then that means you haven't forgiven. That means you haven't moved on. No, it is
Mhm.
not up to you to decide for me whether I say the word I forgive you or not, that I have moved on or not. That's for me to decide. I know that. You don't know that. So if that's your perception, again, to each their own. I respect your perspective if that's what you feel. That if I'm not, unable to say the words I forgive you, then that means I haven't let it go or that I haven't moved on or that it's hurting me. That's your perception. That's fine. I respect it. But don't try to impose that on me.
That's right.
And that's where I stand with the forgiveness.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think.
No, I'm absolutely with you, and I second what you said. You know, you forgive and you release and you go through it as you see it fit, the way it works for you, at the time it works for you, the way it works for you, because forgiveness is hard, and for me, talking for me, it was really hard. And not just forgiving him, but also forgiving myself. Like that part right there
Self
was
forgiveness.
even harder, because I wasn't even thinking about forgiveness at first. I was just trying to survive, trying to piece myself back together.
Hmm.
And sometimes people kept throwing that word, at me like it was some magic key to healing. How you
Yeah.
need to forgive to move on.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
I though?
Yeah.
Like, do I?
Yeah. Do I? Really? Do I? Said who?
Right.
Said who?
Yeah. Because in my mind, forgiving him felt like letting him off the hook.
Yeah.
Like
And
saying everything
betrayal to
he,
yourself almost too.
yeah, yes. Like everything he did was okay, and it wasn't. But the real battle was with me. I blame myself for staying for so long, for ignoring the red flags, for allowing so many things I shouldn't have, for the not living sooner. I kept replaying all the moments I should have walked away,
Mhm.
should have fought back, should have known better. I had a lot of could have, should have, would have
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, we all do.
And that self blame was eating me alive. But again, it's the way I heal, the way I forgive, the way I release. It's my own.
Mm, mm.
It's my own, right? And it is personal. It happens on your own time. It's in your own way and for your own reasons. Nobody else gets to tell you when or how to do it. For me, it wasn't a big dramatic moment. It was gradual.
Mm.
It was little shifts, little releases until one day I realized I wasn't carrying the same weight anymore.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, I forgave him so he could no longer have the power over me.
Yeah.
I released him so he could no longer have the power over me,
Mm-hmm.
and I also forgave myself because I finally understood that I did what I had to do to survive.
Yeah.
I was in a mental
Fog.
state that, of course, I could say all these things now, but at that moment, I was so clouded. I was such a puppet
Mm-hmm.
that I couldn't even think on my own,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad we're covering these subjects and we're having these discussions because they need to be talked about. Really
Absolutely.
need to. We need to address them. In your story, Yara, and that's the last point we will discuss today, you discovered after his passing that there was infidelity on top of everything else,
Yeah.
right? And you dealt with it, okay? And that's not something we need to get into. But for women out there who may be having some suspicion, some hints that their partner may be playing around, cheating, whatever, right?
Hmm.
What is one piece of advice you would give this woman so that she doesn't fall into the trap of closing her eyes and being in denial
Hmm.
and, excusing the behavior and justifying? One piece of advice. I know you could give so many advice, but just one
Oh my God.
that we
Only
can
one.
that you can give. Only one for now. Otherwise, we're gonna have this talk for the next 2 hours. I can see that. Just one piece of advice. Let's limit it to the woman who may be suspicious,
Mhm.
but doing all those things I just mentioned earlier, denial, justifying excuses. What would be your advice to her?
Definitely to trust your gut. Like if
Mm.
something feels off, it probably is. So
Mm.
just trust your gut. Women have this deep built-in intuition, right?
Mhm.
But too often we ignore it, right?
Mhm.
Or second guess ourselves because we don't want to believe what we are seeing.
Yep.
And sometimes right in front of our faces,
Mhm.
and it's just like, oh, I don't see you, but you're right there, right? And if you're noticing red flags, like secrecy with his phone, sudden changes in behavior, like weird excuses, emotional distance, don't gaslight yourself. Don't let him convince you you're crazy or overthinking things. Pay attention to the actions. Pay attention to patterns and not just words. It's and the most important thing is to protect your peace, right? If you feel like something isn't right, start observing without letting your emotions cloud your judgment.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. We just let our emotions cloud our judgments, and then we don't see what's right in front of us. And gather your facts, stay grounded, and most of all, remember that you deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty and love that doesn't make you question your own reality. Because when that happens, it's just not love. So trust your gut.
That's a great advice. Trust your intuition. Like, shouldn't we just be doing that on our own? Why do we have to get advice to tell us to do
Yeah,
what we should be doing?
yeah, yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I'm
that's
pretty sure the whole lot of women out there are feeling that gut feeling right there, and they just ignoring it. Just go
trust
with it.
it. Trust it. Trust yourself. Just have a little more trust. You're not imagining things. You're not
Mm-hmm.
exaggerating. You're not making things up. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it. You're feeling it. There's a reason why. Dig.
Yeah,
Dig and find out. And when you find out, don't stay complacent. Take action.
that's right.
Because what's the point
Yeah.
of digging and then staying in the same situation, crying and complaining about it and just feeling helpless? No, you can take your power
Mm-hmm.
back and you can do something about it because you, exactly like Yara said, you deserve better.
Absolutely.
Yara, for someone to connect with you, to work with you for the financial management, to be educated, to be coached, how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, bookkeepingcs.com. You can email me at info@bookkeepingcs.com, or you can find me I have different social media platforms, but Facebook is the best for me. And I go by Yara N Ortiz, the way it appears on the screen exactly, Yara N Ortiz, and you can find me there.
Don't worry if you didn't catch all that. I will have all these details in the description, so you don't have to worry. But thank you, Yara, for telling us how we can connect with you and everything you shared with us today. Mostly for being vulnerable to share your story, because I know that in your heart you feel that what you went through was not in vain. It was to help others by sharing it and by giving whatever tips you can. If nothing else, is to let a woman out there who's going through this to know that she's not alone and she's not crazy and she's not exaggerating what happened to her. She needs to feel validated. If you are listening to this right now and you are in the middle of this type of toxicity, a relationship with someone who behaves in narcissistic ways, they don't have to have the title of narcissist, but some of the behaviors, the patterns are considered narcissistic. Do your homework, be educated, know that what you are experiencing is abuse. Don't belittle it. Don't say, oh, well, he hasn't laid a hand on me, so there is no abuse. No, emotional abuse is abuse. Psychological abuse, when they gaslight you, is abuse. Using your name, your money, so that financially you are in a bad place, that's abuse. Please, if you don't know that you are being abused, ask someone else's opinion. Because, like Yara said, your judgment may be clouded. You may not be thinking clearly. So reach out for help. I can just go on and on because this is a very passionate subject for me. Because, like
Yeah,
we said, I've been there, you've been there, and we're here teaching it. And I do this with all of my heart, hoping that someone out there will benefit from this. I that's all I want.
yeah, I'm here. I'm here. That's why I'm open. Before I wouldn't or couldn't talk about it. Um, but now I'm more confident and free to talk about it. And that's my mission, to continue to talk about it in different platforms
Mhm,
so that women can hear it.
mhm.
And it's not, like you said, it's not only realizing, it's realizing, accepting, and taking action.
Yeah.
And taking action, because if not, you're going to just stay in that cycle.
Thank you, Yara, for your time, for being here with me in this beautiful conversation. And hopefully in the future, I can have you on the show again, maybe talk about a different subject. Talking with
Yeah,
you is just amazing. Whatever subject we talk about, I know we would have a good time.
thank you. Thank you. You know
Thank
where
you.
to find me, so.
I do. I do. Thanks for riding along with me on the healing train. I hope today's journey brought you a little more peace, insight, and maybe even a few smiles. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and share so others can hop on board and benefit too. If you are on a healing journey and want to work with me, connect on Facebook or on Instagram at R2R Coaching. All the links are in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss a stop on the healing train journey. And until next episode, keep on healing you.